Hello, guys. We are the three igniters,
Yes!
and I am here to ignite you into taking action on changing your life, changing, exploring what is it that needs to be better in you and for you.
And I'm here to ignite your relationship with food and how you look at the sensual pleasure in all of life that's around you.
And I'm here to ignite the leader that lives within you, your leader self, and to help you to connect with yourself and your loved ones. Right. So, there's something about the polarity of what's happening around this as well, right? There's so much, two sides. Send my kids, don't send my kids, right? And so I think in terms of choosing, where does polarity come in this in terms of how it impacts ourselves in choosing, making a choice for ourselves, and we're making a choice for our children. People are making choices for their children, right, in the best interest of their children. So I think even that, how many parents are actually talking to their children to see what they want as well. And if your child doesn't want to go, but you need to have them go because you need to work, what do you do? Right.
I think what part of the whole stressful situation is that people expect, like we are, and when I say people, I include myself, like we have been conditioned by society for standards. Like what is expected, what is there in the infrastructure. This is what's supposed to happen, right? And in those cases, we've been led into getting dropping into our decisions easily, right? Because it's like following the flow. It's what's supposed to happen, right? But I think this time around, it has made every parent out there wacko, at least for a little bit, because they don't know what to listen to. What is the guidance? Like, what do I take into account to make a decision?
Yes.
Is it only my kid? Is it me and my needs? Is it what the school is telling me? Do I trust that the school has the conditions and the, everything, the infrastructure for the decision that I make? How is this going to look in a couple of months? Never mind years.
Well,
so I think it's because it's a new experience. It's something they didn't need to do ever.
Right. Right. And so there's something about, that waking up from the coma of routine, right?
Exactly.
Every September, your kids go back to school, you don't worry about it, you get your schedules. We need to be awake.
Yeah, because it used to be they're gone, I get a break, right? Mommy gets a break, daddy gets a break, whatever, because blah, blah, blah. I know just as, for instance, yesterday I was with my chiropractor and her daughter started kindergarten, right? So half the kids in the school don't wear masks up until the age of 8, because that's what the province says. So half the kids in the school are wearing masks, the little ones aren't. And she said, we're trying to get her, again, kindergarten, not used to whatever, but she's like, comes home with a different kid's masks. They don't know any of that stuff. And how do you? But she said the frustrating part is parents who are coming to pick up their children and don't wear the masks because they're like, oh, I've had this thing on all day. I have a sore throat. I can't be bothered, right? Like this is just enough, right? And she said, we, like, from her perspective, it's like, we still have to look at the future of the rest of the kids, right? And give children this lens of, okay, these are part of the rules that we have to, while we're in this environment, when can we take it off? Who can we play with, right? So it's all of this. She said it's a little bit easier because their daughter's 5, right? But she said it's just so frustrating when you hear parents that then curse the system right there in front of all the kids. And it's like, it's not helping anybody, right? Like, it's lost what we talked about was it lost what parenting, part of parenting is about, right? Which is to say, these different things are happening, but we need to do this to keep others safe and whatever it is, right? So
I think it, you know, as I'm listening to you, the word that keeps coming up for me is control, right? And I think that this is really challenging our need and our innate need and desire to control situations. And every corner we turn where we think, okay, I've got this, we're presented with another invitation where we have no control. So yes, I can control up to a certain point, but the whole situation we have no control over. And I think what we're seeing in terms of the polarity and the difficulty in choosing is, where do I sit inside of myself with control? You know, being someone who used to always want to control every aspect of my life, the thought of being vulnerable and showing that vulnerability and expressing that vulnerability seemed like a loss of control. And it took a long time to recognize, oh, when I actually relax into it, that's when I'm in control. Right? We've defined control as an active thing, to be able to do something. And I think I don't know, I don't have children.
From a very restricted space, because control, like you're saying, when you drop into it, it's not a control restriction, right? It's just a strength, in my opinion. Like, it's an inner strength that can guide you, right?
Right. But I think I get it though, because I really do remember what it's like to want to hold on to every little vestige of something that I could control. And again, I don't have children, so I can't imagine the complexity that's added on, because I'm not just making choices for people aren't just making choices for themselves, they're making choices for their children.
So there is, when you guys talk about control, and then I can't remember now the word Donna used. It's like
restriction versus strength.
Okay. So strength was what she used. I mean, in my work, I make a huge distinction between control and power. Power coming from inside of you. Control coming out of fear. Control is always related to your fear of not being adequate, not being efficient enough, not being good enough, so it's a long list of fears. So know then that, and we can talk about that some of the time, because it's super interesting. But the reason I mention that is because I'm going to use the word control now with caution. But what I think is that you do have control over a couple of things. And I will, even in this kind of situation, and I will mention a couple of them. These circumstances that we're living now are directly related to an illness, right? It's a pandemic, and we know we all have a part on that. From that point of view, the use of a mask is out of respect, because scientifically proven, most masks don't protect you; they protect people from you. So let's make it that. Right. Let's make that clarification.
Right.
Because of that, it does make sense that we use it in public places, because then we could be holding back the spreading, right? It's like less of us out there, let's put it that way. And so because of that, there are less chances of people that are vulnerable to get infected by this do so. But on the other hand, I mentioned fear and control together. Fear is something that immunodepresses you. And so if you are acting and making a decision out of fear, and the fear that you are infusing your child and yourself on this case is around this decision. Do you go to school? How do you socialize? What do you do? If you have a mask, if you don't have a mask, what do the other person? If that comes out of fear and not knowledge, if you are imposing behavioral rules in your kid and not having a conversation with your kid, that's a hell of a difference, one from the other one, then you create anxiety in yourself and the kid. And that is always immunodepressant. So you are making yourself and your kid more vulnerable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So those are reasons, powerful reasons for taking a deep breath and going into this with the sense that you do have choices. You do have choices. You can have a conversation with your kid and the kid to understand. Kids are brilliant, way more than many adults.
Yeah.
So don't treat them like people that don't know what they're doing. They do.
Yeah.
And they understand perfectly okay when you talk to them, when you explain things to them, even your concerns.
Yeah, I think, you know, it's the whole, can I see the tree, you know, do I see the trees when I'm in the forest, right? Kind of thing. And when we're in it, when we don't even, sometimes we don't even recognize that we're operating under a, you know, my world is not safe.
Mm-hmm.
Meta. You know, I say, we have two metas. My world is safe. My world is not safe. And if we operate under my world is not safe, that fear is what's driving everything in every conversation and every engagement. And, you know, if I'm operating under my world is safe, great. And also that has results, because I could be operating under my world is safe, so I don't need to put a mask on, right? Because my world is safe. Right? There's so many complexities of this because we are also living within community.
Exactly.
Right. And I think that's the thing, you know, my personal view around something is my personal view. And I know when I step outside of my home, I'm in community. And so how am I choosing to be in community?
Exactly. Which is why I brought up the word respect.
Mm-hmm.
Because I am definitely one of those people that I'm 100% convinced I'm not gonna get sick. I don't allow that into my energetic space. I work for it. I do my due diligence, and I trust that everything I do totally empowers my immunity and my abilities to fight anything out there, right? So I'm not afraid of it. I'm convinced 100% I'm not getting it. But the second that I get out of my door, I step into respect for everybody else. They don't necessarily think the way I do. Most of them definitely don't do the work I do on myself, when I'm in. So it could be very wrong of me to assume that I should impose in other people my ideas and the way I think and the way I behave. So out of my house, I step into respect, and therefore I wear the mask, even if I don't believe that I'm transmitting anything or getting anything, or it doesn't matter. It becomes irrelevant at that moment. I can have a conversation with other people, but out of respect, I adopt whatever measures need to be taken.
Totally get it, and it took me a while because I'm like Yasmilde. I do not believe I'm going to get it. I do work to continue to keep my system healthy, and but I know that there's times where, as much as I carry it in my purse, until I'm into the door, sometimes I'm like, oh yeah, shoot, the mask. Not out of, it's not with me and I don't want to, because I don't wear it around all the time. There's still sometimes those triggers, but I do it from I've got it right here. Like, I don't get into, oh my God, right? Like, why the mask? It's just like, okay, yeah, I've got it. Sorry, because to your point, how far do people stay away? What's going on? That's happening all the time. Every grocery store is different. Right? So now you go back to the schools. Every school is different. But what do we hear in the mass media, right? What are we hearing by the province, right? Especially when we go back to this about kids, it's like those things are what are, deemed sort of how do we do things and do them right? Yet in each school board, there's something different happening. There's, whatever. When you go from the playground, is it okay to the car, right? So it is in the teaching of kids when, right? Do you do it all the time? And like you're saying, yes, all the time, but maybe not at home, right? So it's still instilling what is good for the group, and the group or the tribe being your own sort of family first, and then outside is sort of the way I see it.
Yeah, I think, and we've so far we've focused on the mask aspect of this, right? There are so many other layers as well in terms of connection, right? How, all the messaging around us is around physical distancing, right? Staying 6 feet, right? Now you have kids who are in school, and how do you keep kids 6 feet away from each other, and whether they're wearing a mask or not? And so how is this going to impact their level of connection, connecting with themselves and then connecting with another, right? This is,
especially when connection is what everybody's craving, right?
yes.
Everybody needs. So even when you speak community, it's like, it's the connection point. But if they're not, none of it's here, and then it's all this exterior part, we're struggling in that all the time. I think. Right?
Yeah.
There is something very important to learn out of this situation for parents, most of all. And it's the fact that I have several clients that are on that situation. Like, what do I decide? Where do they go? Do they not? It's even more complicated when they have more than one kid in their household. So now maybe they're not going to the same school. Maybe the rules for both of them is not the same. Their personalities are different. One thing, and the other one's the other thing. And what I would love to bring attention to is the need for you to talk it with your kid. Just make sure that you know what they want. Make sure you know why. Make sure you know how comfortable they feel with one decision or the other one. Because that's how, this is a very, very important educating opportunity. It is about bringing up all of these, all how do you respect, how do you communicate, how do you behave in special circumstances, which are definitely the ones we're living. But it's also related to the fact of how do we take care of ourselves. I am important. That is a message you need to give to your kid, because the effects of that are huge in terms of immune strength. If you take away from your kid their power of opinion, you are actually immunodepressing them. They feel weak, they feel fearful, they feel anxious. So this is an opportunity for every single parent to teach their kids about this, to learn themselves about what this means. What does this mean?
Oh, absolutely. I totally agree with you. And I'm going to go back to that, see the forest for the trees thing. When we're in it, we don't realize it. And if I'm operating from a place of fear, for myself and for my children, to have the capacity. I think a lot of people don't even have the capacity at this point to have those I think some are having those conversations, and I think there are those who just don't know how to have those conversations because they don't know how to have the conversations inside themselves.
But this is the thing, they have to do their work before they can help their children do their work, right?
It is the put the mask on myself first, right? When you're on a plane and they say something happens, put the mask on you first before someone else. But if we don't know how to put the mask on ourselves first, how can we be expected to put the mask on someone else? Right. And if we put the mask on someone else, are we putting on right? The right way, the wrong way, right? There's so many things.
Let's talk about what's a simple type of, tip or formula that parents could start, because it's not about opening the entire world. They have to start somewhere, right? So when we talk about what is the first thing to do, I think, yes, breathe, right? Ground, get into what are the key parts, right? Like what are some of the key pieces, right? That we need to be aware of that, right? And then where do I sit in that, right? So I think it's how do we share with parents what are some of those first steps maybe?
So first and foremost, like you said, breathe into the decision. Assume this is a transition, which means everybody needs to find their own footing. Even if you make a decision, it had already happened that the media, the internet has crashed in schools because all of the kids connecting. So avoid frustrating yourself out of this. It is a process. You might not find what's the best thing for your kid only after a month or two have gone through. You will have to adapt to every moment. So assume that from the very beginning and take very, very deep breaths every step of the way. Take it as I need to oxygenate my brain so that I can have a clear head to act about this.
And, to that, in terms of how do I do that? We need triggers, we need visual cues. So whether it's have notes on the fridge, breathe, whether it's a screensaver that comes up on your phone, whether it's a timer, right? I remember when I first started my journey, I set the timer every hour and a half or so to go off as a trigger for me to take a breath and to check in. Where am I? What am I feeling, right? I think when we get into these modes of we get accustomed to being in a certain mode, we don't know, oh, this feels like this, right? So I think taking that breath to check in, am I tight? Is my chest tight? Am I holding in my stomach? Are my cheeks flushed? Like, what are the things that are going on in your body that is telling you, oh, okay, maybe I need to bring some breath and some air and some space into this.
Also, drop into the habit of asking your kid what happened. How was the experience? How do you feel? What are you getting out of the whatever interchange or communication? Is it like if it's at school or it's through the web? What are you learning? Take into the habit of doing that, because giving them the power to acknowledge their own thoughts and their own feelings makes them stronger.
Yeah,
that could be
it's the parent having the strength to allow that to happen. And I say allow loose, like we understand what that is, but to say, okay, the child does have their own opinion, their own, their own brain, their own thought patterns. They're not the same necessarily as the entire family, right? Which is a whole thing that we're moving through and out of, and never out of, but that's the invitation, I think, which is everyone has an equal part in the family, right? It's just, what is that, right? What does that look like when we're when we're now in a space where we, the three of us certainly understand and believe that, but when you don't come from that environment, right?
Yeah, and even knowing that and having the belief in that, I know for myself there are times when you forget that because of circumstances, right? We get triggered about something. If we think someone is attacking us, right, to defend and protect as opposed to open and invite, right? I think this is an important time for us, for parents, for kids, for everyone, to remember to be gentle with themselves.
Exactly.
Right.
And you conscious parenting, but when we talk of parenting, it's parenting the kids, but our own parenting ourselves, right? Because we're relearning, so we have to reparent, right? What is right for me?
Right. And I think this is where we come in, right? This is the work that we all do in some capacity, right? Helping people to have different conversations inside themselves so that you can have different conversations outside of yourself, right?
So then that would be the last piece of advice. If you need support, if you need to discuss your specific situation, if you need to just vent or listen to different experience, something that will guide you through it, then pick any of us. You can talk to us. That's why we're here. And we are going to discuss your situation and see where we get to a place where you're confident and, yes, confident on what you want to do and what's best for you and your family.
Yeah, it is about support.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I think, one of the key things that you said earlier, Yasmilde, was, it might take a month. It might, you'll get little revelations, which happens in anything, but truly use this time with these kids at this time. And because it's not going away anytime soon, right? It is a part of our human reality, our experience right now. And it's just knowing that every day is going to be a little different, and that keep breathing through it. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, love it.
So then, guys, then hopefully you got something out of this conversation. Yeah. We will be waiting and talking again in a couple of weeks. Hopefully you come back, and then let's be together and ignite together.
Exactly. And remember, there are no good, bad, right, or wrong answers, right? Every choice in the moment is the perfect choice in that moment.
Exactly. See you
next time. Bye.
Take care.